Okay, good morning. We have about 30 participants already and some more are coming in. So we'll maybe wait just a few more seconds and then we'll get started. Okay, I suggest we kick off this session. Very welcome to this session. It's a Dare2Share session. So that means that the key of this session is really to share some information. So it's not like a symposium with a lot of presentations. We will present some input, of course, and some main information on co-creation and on our training network. But the key is that we share information, share the needs that you have, learn from each other and learn what the needs are in the scope of co-creation. In this session, we will probably have people with very little experience or no experience in co-creation, and probably some that have a lot of experience, and that's really nice, and everybody is really welcome. So everybody with some interest in co-creation is welcome to this session. So the host that we have today is a whole bunch. We, of course, have Kat from Venue West, who will take on the technical part, but then we have 6 people from the training, it's an EU-funded training network on co-creation on board, who will facilitate this session. So we have Seb Chastain, who will start with a presentation on what is co-creation and what we would like to accomplish, and some additional information on the training network. Then we will split up in 2 parallel sessions, one led by Maite Verlogne and Benedicte Forsche on some aspects of training in co-creation, and another parallel session, and you can choose which one you want to attend, led by Mai Chinapau and Tetska Altenburg. And the idea is that we do this in an interactive way. You will see that you will be asked some questions and will be asked to collaborate in these sessions. And then we will end up by wrapping up what we learned from the 2 different sessions. And that will be led by Maria Jenna Cariga and myself. And what we also really want to do today is invite you for some further work, because this is really a start of a training network on co-creation, and we hope to collaborate a lot in the coming years, but you will learn about this in just a few seconds. So I'm going to open the floor to Seb to share his presentation and give some background on the co-creation and the network.
Good morning, everybody. So we're a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be at Isbampa, and it's a pleasure to be part of a Dare2Share session because it fits our project perfectly. So I have the pleasure to present to you our international training network, which is called CASCADE, and our mission really is to evidence co-creation and then to develop training so that we can cascade that to other researchers and practitioners. I am pleased to say that we are a team of 6 European institutions. So you can see at the bottom, actually 7 European institutions you can see at the bottom. And I have with us the most amazing team of collaborators, nice people to really have advanced this to the next level. And it's a real privilege to work amongst that team. And as it is an international training network, we are looking to connect with more people and bring in more expertise and points of view into the network, which is one of the reasons for this session today. So co-creation, I'm sure you have heard about it, and Kat is going to put a poll there about this. But it comes in many names. You might have co-creation, co-production, co-design, participatory research. All this has become quite a bit of a buzzword in research, but also in civil society and generally everywhere where there are kind of products or things that are being developed. And actually, there is a long history of co-creation, and it's come over the years in many names: co-creation, participatory design, meta design, co-production, cooperative design. But if we look back a little bit, really, it's contentious, but really the starting point was really in the mid 1970s in the Nordic countries in Europe, where employers kind of rebelled against the introduction of information technology in the workplace. They feared it would replace them. They feared it would not fit with their daily work very well. So they forced the bosses with the unions to actually implement the changes required to bring in information technology in the workplace to be done in a participatory way. And really with this idea that it would have to be human-centered in its design. And that was really, there's some interesting projects like the Utopia project you can read about that were really incredibly large-scale projects that kind of demonstrate that co-creation can work very effectively over a very large-scale project, because that was spread out over all the Nordic countries. More recently is resurfaced in the year 2000, 2010 in product design, and very much in America, where they use the concept of co-creation or co-design to develop products in collaboration with their clients in order to increase sales. So you can actually customize your own Nikes, you can customize your Legos, you can customize all sorts of things these days. But for us, we had to sit down and write first a very clear definition of what we understood by co-creation. So we have a big definition you can see there, which has some keyword. It has to be evidence-based. It's about developing and implementing, but also evaluating health promotion, because this is really what we focus on. The important thing here is that all the stages are there with multiple stakeholders in a collaborative research with a shared decision making throughout the whole process, the development, the implementation, and the evaluation. And it has to lead to a tangible outcome. And it really, we refer to this as being at least at the level 6 on the Armstrong ladder of citizen participation. That's our operational definition of co-creation. In simpler words, it simply means that we need to collaborate with different groups of stakeholders to develop a mutual beneficial outcome, which in our case for public health would be some form of intervention or a policy or something like this. So for us, co-creation is a subset really of all the participatory research. Participatory research, it generally is about generating knowledge collaboratively, but co-creation for us has a much more pragmatic aspect, which is really about ending up with a tangible product at the end. And for us, that product is generally going to be an intervention to promote health. But we are hoping that all the methodologies and advances and evidence we gather through the project, which will run for 4 years, will be applicable in other sectors and in other disciplines. So we will often invite people from other disciplines. So co-creation has been really a buzzword because it comes with some promises and some potential benefits. The first promise is that it would open up and democratize the research process and the development of interventions, that it would take into account more of the views of the recipients and the deliverers of these interventions. And that's really shown by the Armstrong ladder I talked about. And we want to work above rung 6, which is about a working partnership. The second thing is we think that because we are taking into this human-centered and this participatory approach, we think we will be able to bridge, finally, the bench to bedside abyss, which is essentially that a lot of our interventions that we develop in the lab very carefully or in standardized setting, once we're trying to port them to the real world or in less standardized settings, we see the efficacy disappears. So by developing interventions that are closer to the real world situation through participatory co-creation, then we might be able to actually end up with interventions that are more effective in the real world. The second promise is that co-creation might help us tackle what we call generally wicked problems. So problems that are really complex, that don't really fit the mold, kind of cause and effect situation where we can identify a cause of a problem, develop an intervention to tackle that cause, and then it would just get rid of a problem. We are faced, particularly around physical activity and nutrition, with situations where where there are so many determinants and factors that influence the potential outcomes, including all the ones that we don't think about, that often our intervention fail. And I've seen this over and over every year in ISBANPA in the presentations, where we are being very honest as researchers and demonstrating that a lot of our interventions don't work. So the promises of co-creation is that we can actually probably identify more of these factors and tackle them by having a more plural point of view about what's happening underneath. But where are we in terms of evidence for co-creation, like real evidence? If we look at the latest reviews in both the field of health and in other fields, well, there is a vast amount of literature that talks about the benefits and the promises, but actually very few that put this into the test. And the latest review tell us that basically there are big problems with this, with the evidence base. One, which is about the methods and the system to put it in place and implement it and evaluate it properly is simply not there. The second one is that we don't have really a good evidence base to demonstrate its efficacy, and we might not even know how to do that. So that's the reason why we've put in place Health Cascade, is to really ask hard questions about co-creation, about methodological inquiry, ask questions about what is the theory, the ontology of this new kind of knowledge we're trying to create, ask questions about the ethics, ask questions about what are the best methods to use, how to then measure, evaluate its impact. And we are trying to test this as we go along over the next 4 years around global health issues in 4 different settings, which is the educational system, in communities and urban design, in the care, healthcare sector, and in the workplace. And we are going to test that in 4 different populations as well, which are older adults, children, adolescents, and adults. So the whole lifespan. By constantly going back and forth, trying different things and evaluating them. In addition to that, we're going to look in the middle about how we can support that with enabling technology and digital technologies. And we're hoping that with this testing over the next 4 years, that we'll be able to develop a training program for evidence-based co-creation. And that's really our mission. And we're going to be joined by 15 PhD students to do that across the 7 institutions over the next 4 years. But we have a big challenge ahead of us, because what we are trying to do, our mission is quite crazy in a way, because we have to just combine the kind of soft aspect of participatory research, which is really important, that really qualitative quality, together with a much more rigorous, hard methodological aspect, so that we can end up with some sort of mighty giant like a mammoth that is both hard and woolly, that would be evidence-based co-creation at the end. So what we would like you to do is to help us create that woolly mammoth. And here are some of the key questions that we are asking ourselves through the process. What are the ethical issues? And I think Kat is going to put a nice poll about the different areas you think are the most important. What ethical issues does co-creation raise? You know, how do we deal with IP issues around what we developed with co-creators? How do we sample co-creators? Who do we empower to have a say on the intervention? It's more democratic, but is it really democratic? What methods are effective in implementing it? How to evaluate the process and impact in an unbiased way? And finally, is it really effective? And once I've developed something localized, how do I scale it up to some other place? Can I make it generalizable? And finally, can technology help? And this session in particular today, we're going to really discuss 2 points with you that we want your input on. And Maite, in one of the discussion groups that's going to happen in a minute, is going to talk about what are the training needs around co-creation. And Titske is going to ask you some questions about what are the keys for success in co-creation. And I'm going to hand it over to you now, Rit, to introduce these 2 sessions.
Okay, thank you so much, Seb, for this great introduction, and I look forward to find all the components to create the woolly mammoth. So that's great. But I'm going to ask Kat now to enable the 2 sessions, indeed one led by Mai and Titske and one led by Maite and Benedict. And you can just go to one of the sessions by clicking to join a breakout room. So if you click below on breakout rooms, there's 2, and then you can just click on one of the 2 to join one of the sessions. Okay, welcome back, everyone. It was great to see a lot of action and discussion going on in both sessions. I did see a lot of post-its and a lot of ideas on the whiteboard, so that's really great. So maybe we can first start with some reflecting from both sessions. Maybe first, Titske or Mai, you want to report a little bit on your session?
Yes, and maybe also share the screen with and we only touched upon one of the key issues that we want to discuss. So we need many more days to complete this discussion.
Luckily, we have 3 or 4 years for the project to tackle everything. Yeah.
we definitely need that. So team, shall I summarize it? And if you have some additions, please feel free to add. We had really nice discussions about methods, so key issues in methods, and we started off with so we picked some of the sticky notes on the board that we only discussed, I think 3 or 4 of them. We started with the issue of representativeness versus equity. So should we sample by representativeness or by equity, and how to do this? So we talked about involving key stakeholders from the beginning who have a really sense of which people in the community should definitely be included in the co-creation approach. And we ended with discussing that it should be a snowballing approach to include all necessary participants, and also that you might not necessarily have all the participants you need in the co-creation team, but they can also do research in the community to see what other opinions or other issues in the community are. So I think that was the first point we discussed. And then we talked about, the question started with, should we bring up our own ideas in the sessions, or should we start from scratch and let the co-creators co-create all ideas? And there we discussed that it's a process of co-learning and sharing knowledge, and we can share we as researchers can share our knowledge as well. So we could also check what's already out there in literature and propose some of our ideas. But then, of course, it's really important to actually listen to the co-creators when they reflect on your ideas. And you should also have an open mind and acknowledge that maybe your ideas are not that great, and you go with the ideas of the participants. I think that's the main point we discussed in our second sub discussion. And then in the end, we talked about who owns the intellectual property. And this is a really big issue. And yeah, we discussed that it would be great if co-creation could be open source from the start. But yeah, we don't know if that's possible, but it would be great to have this discussion from the start of our project with people who are experienced in IP. Yeah, I think that's a quick summary of what we discussed, but as you can see, there were many more things we came up with. And I don't know if anyone from our group wants to add to this short summary. Please feel free to do.
Yeah, maybe only the second point. It's when you speak about co-creators and researchers and whose ideas are important. Then we also discussed that besides the researchers and maybe the co-creators, you have multiple stakeholders. So, for instance, if you're co-creating an urban environment, you need architects, you need designers. That's because they are much more experienced, and so they will come up with better designs than you as a researcher, definitely. But it needs to be a continuous exchange.
Okay, thank you so much for this reporting. When I joined the session, there was a question regarding the synchronous and asynchronous co-creation. And Titske, you referred to Martina Galler, who's also in this session, but she was in the other group. But maybe if it's okay for Martina to answer, to say a few words on the question you had, Titske, maybe you want to repeat that question which came up in the session?
Yeah. Thanks for this opportunity. Great. If Martina is willing to answer that. So we talked about whether the differences and maybe the advantages and the disadvantages of being able to do a co-creation, for example, online, where everybody can participate in his or her own time. And yesterday you presented an excellent example and some nice results of because you did face-to-face co-creation as well as online co-creation. So maybe you can tell something about the advantages and disadvantages and the differences between the two approaches.
Okay. Thank you for thinking. Well, what we saw is with the online, the motivation was very high in the beginning, and then it was maybe a bit harder to keep this motivation up. And I think that's a lot easier to reach when you meet in person and you have this kind of stimulation. And so I could imagine that the combination of the two could also work well. So you have a session for a specific task where it's suitable online, and then you meet again and have a discussion based on the results, or something like this could probably be very interesting. Because otherwise, I guess, and we had a special setting where the children knew each other, so it was a class, but otherwise you can maybe feel quite anonymous as well, and people don't feel so much ownership in the end about what they do.
Okay, thank you so much, Martina. I think that's interesting to hear. Okay, then maybe we move on to the second group. Maite or Benedict, you want to report?
Yeah, I'll maybe also share my screen very quickly. Here it is. Yeah, I agree that we needed a lot more time to discuss everything. We started with just brainstorming about what are key factors for success, and we had 4 categories related to tools and methods, setting an atmosphere, researcher and participants, and some other. So I think in general, best practices, yeah, it's related to, you have to provide structure in co-creation, use creative methods during the sessions, but be very transparent already from the beginning, discuss the expectations from both sides, discuss what is going on, having these, really the goals, setting the goals together. It should be a fun atmosphere, a safe atmosphere where everyone can share their crazy ideas. And also the researcher, I think the researcher needs a lot of skills to do co-creation. It's not only about being a good researchers and writing a lot of papers, but you need to be flexible, have good communication skills, openness, honesty, listening skills, open-minded, motivated. So yeah, we need the whole package when doing co-creation. And then we discussed, okay, these factors, which of these factors can be trained, and what is important to train. And I think in general, this is in green. You need to be trained in some theoretical aspects, like what is participation, the definition, what are the different types, what are the principles, because everyone is just, using a bit of this, using a bit of that. So it's really important to have this knowledge before you start. Also, we talked about, some facilitation course where you can learn about which methods, which tools there are. Also learning how to collaborate with your specific target group, because it really depends on if you work with children or with older adults. Also, listening skills, communication skills, and that was also important. Not only the researcher could be trained, but maybe also the participants in giving and providing feedback. So that's a bit related to those listening skills and communication skills. Also ethical issues, dealing with vulnerable groups. And then I think besides these really training courses, experiences is also the best training, really learning by doing it, walk along with other co-creation projects, and that will also help you to keep an open mind when you do the co-creation yourself. That's it, I think. If someone wants to add on that from the group, feel free to do so. I was also thinking maybe the 2 Jamboard pages can be we can take a screenshot and send it to people if they want to. I think it's really good to have that. And then I give the floor to you.
Really interesting. I also think it holds a lot of ideas we can take along into our training network and to collaborate in the coming years. Maria, did you want to add something?
Well, I think it's been a very, very interesting process, and just listening to both of the key points of the 2 sessions, I just wrote down 3 questions that popped my mind, and that we may need these 4 years to actually be able to answer. Well, these 4 years and a lot of collaboration, of course. So when it comes to the first session, to the sampling methods and evaluation, including ethics, can we actually end up with kind of a guideline of co-creation? Can we do that and actually include all these ideas and kind of give some strategies or solutions? And it is quite clear that co-creation is not a walk in the park. So it may be much more time consuming than designing an intervention according to our current knowledge or maybe previous evidence. So is it worth the effort? Is it more cost effective? Should we actually do it? Well, we kind of need to try it and test it and get more evidence. And finally, probably we may think, what does it take for co-creation to actually deliver great outcomes or better outcomes than if we just do not co-create it. I think that, well, I don't know if maybe some other questions popped your mind. I'd be happy to add them.
Any other comments or reflections to share? Anyone?
Rit, if you may, listening to these conversations, which were great, and I thank you everybody for taking part and contributing. I feel like I'm very, very ill-equipped and probably too old to do co-creation because I've been formatted in thinking, like Maria, is it cost effective? And just that way of thinking might just be totally unhelpful because it might not be the kind of outcomes we want to reach. So it raises a lot more fundamental issues for me. In particular, around the discussion about how humble researchers need to be, is the kind of environment of academia in which I work in has been not terribly conducive to that. And maybe we need to, and I suppose I'm so happy with the team we have now of Cascade because we kind of break the mold in that respect. But it's generally competitive, collaborative only when we need to. And it's really almost goes against the grain of what co-creation should be. So, you know, maybe we should set up the Health Cascade Institute and leave academia. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe I can add, maybe it's not about is co-creation cost effective, but how can we make co-creation cost effective? Because current top-down interventions are not effective. So I'm sure we can make co-creation cost effective.
And at least it will be more effective than no co-created intervention. That's already an important point, of course. Okay. What I also want to do for the last part of today, Seb, if you want to share the slides regarding some other initiatives. So what we really hope to accomplish also with this session is that we start to collaborate a lot in the scope of this network, this training network, and we really hope to have you all on board for this. And there's a couple of initiatives. First of all, we do have a webinar on the 12th of July. You find the information here, and maybe we can also put an invitation in the chat. It's a free webinar. Everybody's invited to join on participatory research. And then another initiative is that we did get the good news, I think yesterday or the day before yesterday, that a SIG on co-creation has been accepted by ISBNPA. SIG stands for a special interest group, and it's a forum for ISBNPA members with shared interest on particular topics. And then the society helps to take initiatives around these topics. At the moment, ISBNPA already has about 10 SIGs on aging, E&M health, children and families, and so on. So now there's a new SIG on co-creation. So we really hope you will all join, and it will help to put co-creation on the research agenda and on many more agendas, which is of course really good. And then a last thing also is that we did, well, Maria did put a link into the chat on a Google Doc forum with just a few questions, just a question for your name, your affiliation, and if you're interested to be, to collaborate. So if you fill that out, we can keep that information in our files and make sure that you are involved in our network. If we do initiatives on co-creation, we would really hope to invite you for different initiatives. So that would be really nice. In the meantime, I'll just take a look at the chat. Thank you, Maria, for posting that Google Docs form again. So please fill it out. That would be really nice. And then Seb, thank you for sharing the invitation also. That can be opened, and you find the Jamboard outputs And I think this brings us to the end of the sessions. It's 11:15 in Belgium, some other times on other parts of the world. So that just leaves me with thanking you so much for joining this session. We really hope this is just a start of a collaboration and a shared interest in this topic. Of course, thanks a lot to all the people that helped to host this session, and special thanks to Kat from Venue West to facilitating the technical part of this session. So
My
hope
pleasure.
to see you soon. Okay, thank you all for joining. So I think that went well, and a lot of inputs in both sessions, I think. Yeah.
Do we have the results of the poll?
We do. Do you want me to share them? I just emailed them to you.
All right. I mean, everybody else might want to see them. Just really briefly.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was the first set of questions we had at the beginning. And the second set of questions was this one.
So methods is a big one. Yeah.
Evaluation is the big one, yeah.
Yeah, evaluation, the biggest one.
I have to scroll. Indeed, yeah.
So how do I do it? And then how do I make sure I've done it right? Basically, that's what people are asking, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's good.
Do we take some outputs from today for the session in July? Probably some good suggestions and maybe some like results of the poll, and so that we can take along for our session in July.
Yeah, I have created a folder in our Teams page. And in there, I'm going to put the Jamboard results. Thank you, Maite and Titske, for sharing them. And I've also written a whole sorts of reflections as we went along, so I'm going to put it in there. But I suggest that for the 12th of July, the sampling questions and the IP questions were really salient, at least from the sessions I was in. I don't know what you thought was the most salient on your side, Maite?
Yeah, I think like the theory and ethical issues were really important to be trained in. So it seems that people know that there's a lot of participatory research related things out of there, but they want to be trained really in theory and ethics before they get started. And also the methods, they to have this toolbox, it is exactly what we are going to do, but having this toolbox with methods and tools, maybe specifically for your target group, was also very
so shall we ask what they want to see in our toolbox on the 12th of July?
Yeah.
And can we also, because we probably should go beyond asking what they want, otherwise it's maybe too much duplication of what we did today. Can we already give them some content, some input on those most important questions. Michael,
maybe
right?
Ask them to prioritize based on my tasteful Jamboard.
Like what is the most important thing to be trained in?
Or prioritize it, because
prioritize. Yeah.
Probably we cannot do everything, but what should be at least in the toolbox, or what should we start with?
And we do have, because I haven't looked in detail into the program, we do have Michael Wright on the 12th of July, and
yeah, he's giving a keynote, and that's going to be pre-recorded, so he cannot.
He's in this. Yeah, he's in the US time zone, so he cannot join.
And did he also reflect on some issues raised and training needs discussed?
Yeah, we can ask a good point. We can ask him beforehand to reflect on.
Yeah, that would be the idea, to indeed one of the most important questions, so that he can take that along. I think that would be really nice. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? I think it went well.
Yeah, great session. Very helpful. Very helpful. Yeah.
And a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
We should organize this yearly to get really other input from other people.
Yeah. Well, there's
Dare2Share
stays.
Remember, from now on, the 12th of July is Co-Creation Day.
International, worldwide.
We can do that, Maria. The Dare2Share committee.
That's great.
Okay, well, thank you all.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice day.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.